So we are Teach the Shoah, and I'm really happy that you are here. I would ask, hold on, let me let in a couple more people. If you are able, you can write in the chat a little something like, I'm here, like for myself, I would write, I'm here in Virginia Beach in Virginia, and I'm part of Teach the Shoah. So you could type something in like, I'm in Arkansas and I'm good friends with Amy, or I'm in New York City, and I think Amy's the greatest thing on since sliced bread. So you can write a little something in the chat right now and let us know what brings you here. What are you up to? All right, I'm going to pull up a little share screen here and let's make sure we got it on the right thing. All right, so now I have to open my other little thing. Okay, so if you are not familiar with Teach the Shoah, who are we? What are we? We are dedicated to ensuring, and I think this is more important than ever, that the story of the Holocaust remains relevant and resonant. What do? We challenge ignorance and hate. We tell testimony-based stories. We try to build personal connections to the Holocaust among people of all generations and all backgrounds. And in addition to teach the Shoah is record to their computer. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to say yes. Um, we also offer other programs besides this one, all kinds of different resources for educators and families, which you can find on our website, teachtheshoah.org. I am Tanya Wasoker. I am a storyteller. I am an instructor, a facilitator. I'm also a board member for Teach the Shoah and a coach. And tonight we are going to be hearing Amy Faust Mayer, who's going to wave to us. Give us a wave. I'm not sure you can see here. Let me take the slide down so we can see who is here. So Amy, give us another wave, and I'm going to introduce her in just a moment. Let me check. Oh, yes, Kathleen Bassini in Chesapeake. Great. So close to me, close to me. Okay. So what we're going to be doing tonight is actually part of a sacred tradition. That's what storytelling is. Every telling requires an audience. And together, you and Amy and I, we are going to embrace this story. Together, we're going to listen. Together, we're going to notice. And we're going to start by taking just a moment to prepare ourselves to receive the story that Amy's going to tell us. We're going to be ready to notice our own feelings. And here's what I would like you to do, whether you are on camera or not at this moment. Just close your eyes, just briefly, and pay attention to your breathing. Just take a nice, deep, cleansing breath and exhale, nice and slow. Notice your posture. Are your feet on the floor? Are you solidly in your chair? Maybe lift your head, straighten your spine, stretch just a little bit. You can roll your shoulders. Keep on with the slow breathing. This is important because you are flooding every cell of your body with oxygen and also letting out the CO2. So a couple more deep breaths in and out. Just breathe in and release. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. I think that we are ready to begin our program. So tonight for our coffee house, Amy will highlight one person's story, but I think you're going to see how one person's story actually impacts so many other stories. The story tonight that Amy is going to tell us is of Gerda Weissman Klein. And while we listen, we are going to appreciate and notice what happens. And afterward, we're going to share our appreciations with Amy, and then she will tell us a little bit about how she created the story, how she developed the story, and you're going to have a chance to ask her some questions as well. I want to remind you, I know you're here for this purpose. These are Holocaust stories that we tell. Everyone reacts differently to a Holocaust story. Please give yourself space, give yourself grace as you listen. And I ask you to please set aside anything that could distract you at this time, your cell phone or some other thing that you're looking at. Um, just listen with your whole self so that you're able to really imagine the story as we're listening. All right, let me pull up a slide here as we introduce Amy. All right, let's see if I did that correctly, which I suspect I did not. So hold on, I don't want to mess up what we're doing. I notice nobody is correcting me and saying you're not doing it right, but this should be better. Okay, Amy. Amy is a native of Cincinnati. She's a trained actor. She's a Montessori educator. She is a peace activist and a playwright. Amy began her professional work in Holocaust education by serving on the Speakers Bureau at the Cincinnati Holocaust and Humanities Center. And today she teaches Jewish education classes at Ohave Zion Synagogue in Lexington in Kentucky. And also, along with all of these other things that Amy does, she's a professional storyteller for Teach the Shoah. So I'm going to pull this down and just tell it to you so that you don't have to stare at a screen. All right. So Gerda Weissman. She was born in 1924 in Bielsko in Poland into a loving Jewish family. In 1942, Gerda and her entire family were forced to move into the ghetto in Bielsko before she was then separated from her parents, who were deported to Auschwitz. Gerda herself was deported to a series of forced labor camps during the entire war. And in January 1945, she was one of about 2,000 women who were forced on a death march more than 350 miles until on May 7th of 1945, she was liberated by American troops, among them Lieutenant Kurt Klein, who would become her husband. So I'm going to put Amy on Spotlight, which I don't see. Hold on a moment. I hope you'll be patient with me because there we go. There we go. All right. So Amy, are you doing okay? I hope you are. All right. So before Amy begins her story, I would ask you all to turn off your mics so I don't have to do it for you, except for Amy. And I want to point out something that you may not realize if you're not a frequent Zoom person. The chat, let me let in Mark here. If you could refrain from adding your comments into the chat while Amy is talking, that would be helpful because those little notifications will pop up on her screen and it can be really distracting. If you want to send a message to me, you can use the chat to send it directly to me privately and she won't be distracted. So afterward, we will have plenty of time to share our appreciations and ask our questions. So we'll wait for that. All right, so let me make sure we've got everything right. We are recording. You're on Spotlight. Everybody good? If you're not good, now's the only time you have to speak before we get Amy going. Amy's going to tell the story of Gerda Weissman Klein in the first person, I'm going to turn off my mic. And Amy, the floor is yours.
Today is May 8th, 1939, and today is my 15th birthday. And I'm sitting in my kitchen, and my mama and my papa are here, and my brother Arthur, and I have many of my friends from school that mama let me invite. And she made this most delicious sweet cake this morning. And I see it right over here on the stove, and she made homemade vanilla ice cream, the first of the season. And I'm ready to open my presents. And the first present that I open is, of course, from Mama and Papa. So I open up my present. My first pair of silk stockings. I run my hands along the beautiful stockings, and I think about all the dresses that I could wear, especially the blue ones. I love the color blue. And I open up the second package, and it's a pair of dress shoes, patent leather dress shoes, the ones I wanted with the small heel. Oh, I thank them. Thank you so much. I was so excited. And of course, I had a wonderful time with my friends. It was a wonderful birthday. Well, about a month later, we have summer vacation. My mama and I, we spend so many days in the garden, smelling the beautiful flowers. Some of my favorites are the lilacs. And of course, when the violets are in bloom, oh, that blue color just gets me every time. Well, Mom and I went to a spa resort for a couple of weeks. And my brother and Papa, they were supposed to join us, but things are getting a little confusing in our little town, and I understood they couldn't come with us. But when we got back, it was almost time for school, and I was to be a high school student for the first time. And things changed. In September, the beginning of September, we were invaded by the Germans. September 3rd was a night that I will never forget. I was at the same table where I had my birthday party earlier on. And I could hear the planes in the sky, and I could hear loud sounds and roars as if everything was just crashing down among us. And my brother, Arthur, he went out to get our cats and his two dogs, and he came back, and there was a hole in his trousers. And I asked him, Arthur, why is there a hole in your trousers? He said, they're shooting from the rooftops. The Germans are here. Well, after that, things really began to change. In fact, about a month and a half later was probably one of the worst days of my life. This was the day that Arthur was told to register with the Germans, and they took him away on October 18th. And I remember the night before, I knew he was going away. And I said, Arthur, I can't be here without you. And he said, you must be strong. You can be strong. You will be strong. And you will take care of Mama and Papa. So the next morning, I watched him walk down the path towards the station. He wouldn't look back. And we started to walk. And without turning, he said, "Please, do me a favor. Don't follow me." So the next couple of months were very dark. I missed my brother very much. We then were told that we were to move to the basement of our home, that there would be a family of German origin that would be moving into the home, and we would have to take up residency in the basement. So Papa and Mama and myself, we were in the basement, which was very damp and very cold. There was no electricity. There was very little water. It was very dark. And then I had this idea that I hadn't seen my garden, and it was already springtime. So one day I snuck out from the cellar and I walked to the garden and I pretended to pick those violets that I normally would pick. And I looked up at my window, what used to be my window, and I saw the wallpaper and I could see the shadow of my bed. And I remember thinking, if only I could just go back to before everything started. And I saw the sign in the garden that said, "No dogs and no Jews." This was my garden too. There was a very strange feeling with my father. He was very ill. And I could tell that when the day came when he had to leave, he told us, "We are going to the ghetto. We are going to the Jewish quarters, and I will be asked eventually to register myself and go to a work camp. But we will sell all of our possessions, and we will bravely walk through the streets to our new home with our few possessions that we have on our cart, and we will look at the positive in what we have, and that includes each other." And as I listened to him talk, he then said to me, as he was leaving us, he said, "Wear your skiing boots, put them on." "But Papa, this is June. It's summertime. Why do I need to wear my skiing boots?" He said, "Put them on." So I put on my skiing boots. You listen to your father, of course. Well, my father did leave. And soon after, my mama and I, we had to then walk to the station in groups because we were going to also have to leave. And as we walked, I noticed that there was a man, an SS officer, standing right there and pointing with a little stick to the left, to the right. Well, he motioned for me to go to the right with some of my friends. Ilsa, one of my close childhood friends, she was there, as well as some other classmates. And to the left, Mama. And I could see what was going to happen. We were going to have to separate. And we were forced onto this truck. And I remember hearing my mama, hearing her voice. And I said, "Mama," I called out, "Mama." And she said in German, "Be strong, Gerda, be strong." And that was it. We pulled away. and I saw my mama in the distance for the last time. We spent many years in work camps. I was fortunate to have some of my very good friends, Ilsa and Susie and Liesel. We loved each other like family. One time, I wouldn't tell one of the guards who had thrown a piece of bread over the fence. And I was beaten, and I was for days in bed. And Ilsa, she came up to me one evening soon after, and she said, "Gerda, I have something for you. It's a present." And she took it out of her pocket. It was this little strawberry that was half smushed, and it had some dust on it. She said, "Here, I found this in the gutter. This is for you. I've been saving it for you all day. I hope it will make you feel better." And as I put the raspberry in my mouth and I bit down, I could taste the sweetness and a little tart. And I looked at her as if she had given me gold. We were in the work camps, like I said, for a number of years, and it came to the point where one day we were all asked to come out of our barrack, and all I could see was the fluffiest, most beautiful snow that just went for miles and miles. And then one of the guards said, "Forward march!" And he told us all to get into this group where we had to form 4 women across. And so we took that first step into the snow, and I could hear my ski boots crunch as I took the first step. And I realized we weren't going to be in the camp anymore. They were going to make us walk. And they did, for many, many miles. And we would walk in columns. We would go to sleep in barns and then wake up the next day and walk many miles later after that. Ilsa was starting to get very sick. I could tell she didn't even eat the potato that I offered her. And one day, she turned to me and she said, "Gerda, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not angry. And I hope no one's angry at me. But when you hear from my parents and my little sister, I want you not to tell them how I died." And I looked at her and I said, "Elsa, no, no, no. No, you need to be strong, just like I said I would be strong." And I looked for a way to help her, and I saw there was a little brook just beyond some trees, and I ran halfway to the brook, and I was stopped by a guard. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm sorry. I was just getting some water from my friend." And he says, "Come back to where your friend is." And he pushes me, and we go over towards Ilsa, and she's barely resting up on a stone. And he said, "You will not go and get her water." And he kicked her in the face. I held her in my arms all night, and we both fell asleep. The next morning, I wake, and she doesn't. I don't know how I can go on, but I still do. I have the pictures of my mama and my papa and Arthur in my ski boot, and I keep thinking of them and how I promised them I would be strong. And we walk and walk and walk. And at this point, there are 120 of us. And we started with over 2,000. Finally, we end up at an old factory, and the guards, they push us in and they barricade the doors and the windows. And they're laughing and they're saying, "You will not escape this time." And so we're locked. And I hear a ticking. And I think to myself, this is the end. This is the end. And I fall asleep. And I wake up to shouting. And it's the sound of voices, of Czech voices. And they're yelling, get out of the factory now. The war is over. And they open up the doors. And I stand there, barely stand there. And I look out, and I don't see any SS officers. I don't see any cars with swastikas on the hood. But yet I see a car coming up the road. But it's not green. It's muddy, but it's not green. And there is a big white star on the hood. And I recognize it's the American army. We've been liberated. That's what I think. But I don't know. And so there's a man that comes out. He jumps out of the Jeep and he runs toward me. And he has dark glasses on. And he says, "Excuse me." And I said, "I am Jewish. You know, I am Jewish." And I stand there waiting for a response for a very long time. And finally, he takes off his dark glasses and he looks right into my eyes and he says, "So am I." And this godlike man, he held the door open for me. And he said, "I'd like to see the other ladies." I didn't understand. And he motioned for me to go on before him. And I felt that finally I have gotten some of my humanity back. Well, this man ended up my husband. And we were married for over 50 years. And I will share something that I said at a ceremony where President Obama put the Presidential Medal of Freedom around my neck. I said, "I pray that you never stand at any crossroad where it completely changes your way of life. But if you do, just know the darkness, it seems like the total, that there is no way out. But remember, not to give up, and to know of the true brilliance of the stars. Thank you.
Amy, wow. Wow. Okay, everybody just take a deep breath. Amy, can I can I give you some appreciations? Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. So, first of all, I appreciate how much time you put into this. I know that you have a personal connection to this story, and I've heard some of the beginnings of it, but you far surpassed anything that I've heard thus far. And I just want to say a couple of things. How lovely when you were describing the stockings and you stroked them. I could tell you were stroking those stockings. And you told us about the stockings and the shoes and the blue dress. And then when you told us the most difficult day of your life was your brother walking away, and your face just changed, and it was just so real to me that I was right there with you. And your repetition of him telling you, and your everybody telling you, you will be strong. You will be strong. Anybody who knows anything about Teach the Show and storytelling knows what I mean when I say your pauses were perfect, and your breaths, you gave me time to imagine each thing. And can I just tell you that when you sneered your Nazi sneer, when you kicked Ilsa in the face, it was, I feel like Jennifer right now, actually. And people, Jennifer, know why I'm saying that. Um, and yes, I had chills when you said the war is over. So I'm going to stop because clearly I'm um, verklempt here. But I would like to offer anybody else who would like to give some appreciations also to Amy. So there's two ways you can do this. One is you can write them in the chat. I will be saving the chat for her and then putting that together and sending it to Amy afterward. And the other is, of course, to do like Susanna just did and raise your virtual hand, which is easier. And I took you off spotlight, right? Yes. Okay. So thank you, Amy, is all I can say about that. And I will ask for a few people that our timing is great to share a few comments. And I'm going to start with Susanna, please.
Yes, Amy, I thank you for sharing the story. And I have to admit, I was completely mesmerized by your storytelling. It was very vivid. And just like Tanya said, the way you were, touching those stockings, I almost could feel it on my hands as you were telling the story. And even though you used pauses so well, I feel like you have covered um, enormous amount of information and part of the story at the same time. And I felt very much touched by it. And it makes me want to know more about her story. And I was also wondering about your personal connection.
Um, oh, sorry.
I think that's going to come after the appreciations because otherwise we'll never hear all the wonderful things that people would like to say to you, Amy. So hold on for just a minute. Surely there are people here like Cheryl who wants to say something. So go ahead and unmute Cheryl. And then after that, Michelle.
Amy, thank you so much. That really was wonderful. I love the way you started and drew us in, talking about your blue dress and your shoes with the little heel, and everything just sounded so lovely and wonderful, and then the reality comes. And the way you told the story and about the garden, it was very, very moving. And at the end, really, I had tears in my eyes when you said the war was over and that man became your husband. That was a real wow. So it was really a beautifully told story from beginning to end. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that. Michelle, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I do, if I can get through it. Amy, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you or hearing your story. And I think I was kind of glib when Tanya went through the warning of Holocaust stories. I'm a Holocaust storyteller myself, but I will be glib no more because I even knew this story. And what did you do to move myself and so many people? You became each of the people that you were, your face, your tone. I mean, you were the most beautiful teenager, and teenagers aren't usually beautiful, but you were. Um, and then each one, and your pauses were already mentioned. And There was just so much pain. I have no idea how you managed. Are you okay? That's what I actually want to say. Um, It was such a moving story. You've taught me so much, and I really appreciate the amount of work and how you told it. I just thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Let me take your hand down. Great. Sarah, and then we'll have Niana afterward.
Hi, I wanted to thank you, Tanya, for this opportunity to join your coffee house, and Amy, thank you for sharing your beautiful story. The delivery was fabulous. It wasn't just the pausing, it was the slowness of your rate and your deliberate expression of feeling this. We felt the story because of the way that you told it. One thing that stayed with me throughout the story was taking the snow boots. It just almost was a descriptor of so many things that happened during the story. And your liberation, that part, was just very touching and moving. And I wanted to thank you for sharing it and doing it so beautifully. Thank you.
Sarah, that was so sweet. Thank you for sharing. So, Niana, would you like to say something? And again, I remind everybody, please feel free. This is the time to write in the chat your thoughts and your appreciations for Amy. Niana, sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you. I also haven't met you. I hope to meet you sometime. And I want to thank you. The highlights in the story for me were the boots taking. But when you said you do what your father says, that just that resonated. And I loved watching your eyes and your expression. And at one point, I wanted to close my eyes because I was so much there. I didn't want to see it. I didn't, and I, it was surprised me, but thank you so much. I would, and at the end, the other highlight for me was when you said the pause, you described the pause, and then you said, he said, I'm Jewish too. And I guess kept thinking after all that time of Jewish being bad, to have somebody say, yeah, it's good, was was really good. So thank you, thank you.
Niana. always wonderful to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everybody. I think what we're going to do, I'm going to get Nefertiti, and then after that, Amy, you're going to tell us a little
One
bit
more,
about.
Tanya, was there one more hand? I don't.
I see Nefertiti. She's going to speak next. Is there a real hand
One
out
more.
there too? Oh, and Mark as well. So, well, I don't think you're really Mark. I think you're pretending to be Mark, but let's hear Nefertiti, who's got her virtual hand up, and then we'll get Mark.
Thank you, Tanya. Amy, this was an incredible experience for me because I felt like I was really there in time with you. I I I could really feel the emotions, and everyone has spoken about your pauses, but it was more than the pause for me. It was your facial expressions. It was your body language and the tone of voice that you use that drew me into the story, that I wanted to know more. I couldn't wait for the next detail that you were going to tell. I felt the emotions. I mean, it was just incredibly visceral to me that I felt very emotional, and I really appreciate the way you told that story. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Nefertiti, beautiful.
Thank you.
So, all right, Mark, unmute and tell us. I don't have a way to make you go up to the top of the screen if you don't have your hand up, but you've got to unmute that. And I don't have the ability. Oh, because you're on a phone or a tablet. Yes. It is always difficult to unmute yourself when you're on a tablet, but I will keep talking to fill in the moments while you're trying to figure it out. I do not know the magic way to to do that. I just don't. I
And
think
yeah,
it has.
the phone person, may I help her? Would that be
Yes,
good?
Michelle.
Press on somebody else's picture, and the mute and unmute and video and unvideo should come up at the bottom if you press on someone else's picture, not your own. And that's the best I can do. I hope that helps, but thank you.
Oh, well, could you write in the chat and we'll do it that way? I'm gonna put your picture up at the top. Yeah. Yes, there are many, many aspects of Zoom that I have yet to master, and I'm a really good Zoom person, and I still don't have it all. Amy, well, and we'll wait and read that beautiful appreciation in a moment, but do you want to tell us anything about the process of building the story? Do you want to talk for a minute and then I bring up pictures? What would be the best way for you?
Well, I can just say that this story actually is very meaningful to me because Gerda Weissman Klein was um, a speaker for a number of different years at the school where my mom taught in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was called Walnut Hills High School, and it's also where I went to school. And so every spring, uh, that she was able to come to the school to do a talk, my mom would invite people to come that she knew. And one year she invited me, and I was in college at the time. And so I was able to sit in one of the first few rows of my high school auditorium and watch Gerda Weissman Klein tell her story. And so, without giving my age away, this is like late 1990s, so I'm probably giving it away. But anyway, that it was very impactful for me. I ended up literally going backstage, and then my mom introducing her to me that I was, I'm a college student, and that I'm uh, very much a history, somebody who's very much interested in history, particularly Jewish history and Holocaust studies. So that was my first just my first connection with any of her work was actually seeing her. So that was pretty cool because then I went and read the book, and then I watched the movie that was a documentary based on, or not based, it was about her life. That was, I think when it came out in 1995, it was up for an Academy Award and it won for Best Short Documentary. And so she has an acceptance speech. If you go online, you can actually hear her speech that she gives holding the award. And then when I was in graduate school, I signed up to do a whole training course to become a Holocaust speaker for the Holocaust and Humanities Center, which this was before they moved to Union Terminal in Cincinnati, if anyone is familiar with that museum. But I was then invited to go to DC and do a series of programs there. And she happened to be there that weekend with her husband. And they were promoting their new book, After Hours, about after the liberation and about the letters that they exchanged when they were engaged but were unable to get married until he was able to come back to the United States. So I met both of them again. Well, I met her. I had already met her, but and that was again. It kind of was just another for me, just like another not push, but like just another coaxing of like learning more about her story and just continuing to become familiar with her life and her work as a speaker, as a humanitarian. She had a foundation, she and her husband had a foundation that supported hunger and tolerance, and even beyond that, she had a lot of programs with Learning for Justice, which used to be called, which used to be a teaching tolerance, and the Poverty Law Center. So anyway, it wasn't until a few years ago when I became a Teach the Shoah speaker that I started tapping more into her sources again.
Amy, I'm going to pull some photos up in about a second, but I see that Mark, not Mark, is ready to say something to you. So I'm going to grant that and then I'll pull up a picture.
Hi, can you hear me now? You did a most beautiful and effective job and delivery. I've seen many Teach the Shoah presentations, and yours is really amongst the very best. Mazel tov to you. Oh, also, what country was she from, and what camps was she in?
So she's from Poland, Bielsko, but of course it was I forgot what the German name for it. It was like Bielitz or something. But she went to a number of camps. I want to see if I have some of those written down somewhere. I can tell you.
Well, let's look at some of the pictures because some of that we'll be able to figure out pretty shortly. And I actually totally 100% agree with those
I do have the book with me, so I can also look.
The same beautiful smile. That's incredible.
Yeah, look at that. So, do you want to tell us something about this? And then I'm just going to go through the pictures. I'm being mindful here of.
Yeah. So you can see, on the left. Can you hear me? Okay. You can see me on the me. I'm sorry, you can't see me. You can see her on the Gerda Weissman Klein on the left. This was actually she gave a lot of talks, especially at ceremonies for new citizens. And so she actually started a nonprofit with her granddaughter, who became executive director, and she would go all over the country. She would speak about citizenship and supporting new citizens that were coming, especially people coming from areas of the world that were, you know, who have experienced very similar trauma. So that's on the left, and then on the right, of course, it's a picture that's zoomed in. That's a part of a class picture that was taken, you know, when she was younger, like probably around 11 or 12. And then this is a picture of uh, the ski boots. And so she had those ski boots the day that her father told her to put them on, and that would be the pair of shoes that she should wear from now on. She didn't really understand that. And so I remember when I actually spoke with her, you know, I mentioned something about the ski boots, and she said that was, I didn't include this in the story because I thought it was very graphic, but she does talk in some of her interviews about how when they went on the death march and she noticed in some of the other columns where women were walking, they would stop and their toes would just break off like twigs. And she uses that simile, like twigs. And so she talks a lot about how how much how those ski boots, how they really did save her life because it kept her, uh, you know, from getting to that point where she would have, you know, amputated toes or feet, which of course pretty much meant that you couldn't go on, and you know that was it. So those are the boots. This happens to be the cover of the book and I actually have a signed copy from the day that I met both of them at the Holocaust Museum in DC. So this came out in 2001, I think, or something around there. And then he ended up passing away about a year and a half later. But these are the letters that they exchanged right after the war, and it goes in, and they're really getting to know each other, and a lot of their dating is in these letters because there's a period of a number of years where they're not able to be together. So they're very powerful. She has some narrative that's in italics that like throughout, and also for him because it's very much a book that they both wrote together.
Lovely, lovely.
And this is a picture on the left of a picture of the DVD of One Survivor Remembers, which was an HBO documentary that won an Academy Award. So she's holding, well, she's actually kind of holding, I forgot his last name. His name is Cary, Kary. That's his first name. And so he gives part of the speech initially. And then I don't think people realized that she was going to talk, but I think Cary kind of insists. You can almost see that she's coming up. He's about to move behind. And you can't hear this because it's a picture, but if you see it, if you go to, you know, I might have a link, Tanya, that I gave you, but you can hear the music of the orchestra basically saying, you know, it's time to move on. Please get off the stage. And nobody, you know, and the two of them just are ignoring it. And she comes right up to the podium and then she delivers her own small speech holding the Oscar. And so it will make you will you will be touched very much if you watch this. It's probably this in general, one of the most watched Academy Award speeches ever.
I'll try to find that link. And I did see what you just said, that this is one of like the top 5 best Academy Award speeches ever. I think I have it in here, but I have to click through the slides, so I can't look at it while I'm clicking. But
and she
I
also
will try to find it.
won an Emmy as well. So I mean, there have been
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
things that have happened over the course of writing the books. You know, after I met her and her husband died, that's when she started the Citizenship nonprofit with her granddaughter, and her granddaughter, you know, for 16 years was basically her, you know, right there with her, and you know, going and speaking all over the world about the importance of, you know, citizenship and understanding, especially that United States is a very different kind of place, and that, we we welcome diversity. And, this was, of course, during the time, well, you can see the Medal of Freedom that she has around her neck on the left, of course, President Obama. And in my story, I wanted to share a little bit of that at the end, because she really just talks about, she uses that metaphor about the stars and about darkness and light. And that's something that she was able to see with the death march and the walking for so many miles for so many months, that she was able to look up at that sky every evening and just be reminded of just how vast our universe is, and that was part of also what kept her going. She
Amy,
passed away in
this is
2022.
I found it too. Hold on.
Okay.
It's on this slide. So let me see if I can do it while I'm on here. People will see that. I'm pretty sure. Well, no, you know what? This isn't. No, this is a Yad Vashem article.
You can
Sorry.
easily
You can
not
click
see.
on that if you want, but it's a little bit sadder than a speech. We'll try to find it in a moment. Let me just say a couple of things, because I'm looking at the time here. One of the things Teach the Shoah does is we focus on developing our stories using primary source documents and primary source records. If it's a family member, of course, you might have letters, you might have memories of your grandmother or your uncle or somebody talking to you. But sometimes our primary sources are what Amy was describing to you. The books that Gerda wrote, the memoirs that Gerda wrote, films or movies or interviews that you can find online. And it's using all of that information that helps you to be as effective as I think Amy just 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 showed us. So these are just a few of the kinds of resources that she was using, and I'm going to stop the share here because I'm really conscious of people's time. I know there might be a few questions people will have, and I want to honor that too. I'm sorry I didn't give you the correct link. But if there's a quick question, because it is 9 o'clock and I want to be able to lead you out respectfully. But if you have a question for Amy right now, certainly you can keep writing your appreciations in the chat. I will be copying that out for her. But if you have a quick question that you'd like to ask, you can wave at me, or even just unmute and quickly speak up to Amy. And if not, we're going to bring the program to a full close, even though I think we all would like to sit and learn some more. Best way can you write your email into the chat?
Let me do that.
It's a great idea. You will all actually be receiving emails from Teach the Shoah. And let me show you while she's typing her email in there. This is the Teach the Shoah team, but this is not the list of our storytellers. We have over 100 people like Amy, like myself, like Michelle, like Claudia, like, other people on this Zoom who have been trained like we all were to do this kind of work. And I hope that you will consider becoming part of this, or learning more about what we do. We do have a program coming up, and this is a link I do have, and I believe is a correct link. This is called A Moment of Witness. This is a program that we do every year to commemorate International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is January 27th. And this is as you can see, this is January 27th that we'll be doing this. And you can sign up for that. It's a very interesting program with stories in it, and a little bit of hands-on for yourselves to really help you to be there with us. These are just the people involved here. I've got some email things right here to stick into the chat. I know it's hard to click on things in the chat, but you can click on as many things as you want and it'll open a new tab on your computer. You don't have to go away from it. You can get coaching from me or anybody else. All of our sessions are free. We would like very much that you would feel good about donating to Teach the Shoah, just because we would like our programs to remain free while we're doing it. And I'm going to stop the share because I would rather see your faces than see a slide. And it is 9:03, and I know we were leaving off at 9. So this is a good moment for you to ask that last question or type in that last little bit that you wanted to type in. And I hope that you will keep in touch with Amy if you know her, and take her out to lunch or call her up and give her some more appreciations in person if you are a friend of Amy's. And otherwise, I will see you at our next event. We should have another coffee house next month. Maybe it will be Michelle who wants to share her story next month. We'll see who it is.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Amy.
This is the hearing impaired way to applaud, and I have been told that you never want to do like this, that means something completely different that you don't want to tell people, but that you should keep your hands quite straight and stiff. And we do that a lot online. Or you can give her like charming things like that. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out here with us.